Donald Trump rolling out what he calls a tax revolution, but Hillary Clinton is already slamming his ideas as old and tired.
Well, someone who is not old but might be a little tired is Fox News senior national correspondent John Roberts. He's live from Wilmington, North Carolina, where Trump's campaign is today. John?
Peter, truth be told, I'm a little bit of both. Good morning to you, Peter, Ainsley, and Steve. From the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, the Trask Coliseum, where Donald Trump's got a big rally this afternoon at 2. This arena, I'm told, holds about 5,600 people, so if he jams it in, should be a good raucous rally this afternoon for Donald Trump here in the swing state of North Carolina, one that he would really like to win. He'll be going hard on economic policy again today after that big speech in Detroit yesterday in which he reached out really to working class, middle class folks to say, under you, I will make your lives better. I will create jobs through tax cuts and getting rid of a lot of regulation, really going after the same subset of voters that propelled Ronald Reagan to the White House back in 1980. Let's take a look at some of the big ticket items on his tax cut plan. First of all, he would cut the corporate tax rate to 15% from 35%. As you can imagine, that's getting a lot of very positive response from corporations, large and small alike. He would also change the income tax brackets for individuals to 12%, 25%, and 33%. That's down from the current levels, but up from what he had originally proposed, which was 10%, 20%, and 25%. His new plan now tracking more closely what Republicans in general have been proposing. Donald Trump also taking on Hillary Clinton is wanting to pursue the same type of policies as the Obama administration, ones he claims have led to anemic economic growth. Here's Trump.
We will make America grow again. It will present a night and day contrast to the job-killing, tax-raising, poverty-inducing Obama-Clinton agenda.
Hillary Clinton, as you can imagine, jumped on all of that right away, criticizing not only the plan, but the members of Donald Trump's economic team. Listen to what Clinton said yesterday.
He's got, I don't know, a dozen or so economic advisors he just named, hedge fund guys, billionaire guys, 6 guys named Steve. His tax plans will give super big tax breaks to large corporations and the really wealthy, just like him and the guys who wrote the speech, right?
He does have 6 guys named Steve, including Steve Roth, Stephen Mnuchin, and Stephen Miller, and 3 guys named Miller on his campaign team, by the way. Kind of a bad headline for Donald Trump late yesterday when Maine Senator Susan Collins said she would be among the Republicans not voting for Donald Trump. I'm sure you got a lot to chew over with him when he appears with you coming up in a few minutes. Steve, Ainsley, Pete?
We do indeed. All right, John Roberts live in Wilmington. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, here on the Curvy Couch, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Good morning to you.
Nice to be with you.
So, in watching Donald Trump's speech yesterday from the Detroit Economic Club, some people have suggested that it had echoes of Reagan.
It did.
Right?
I was about to say that. I work for Ronald Reagan. You know he's my hero. I'm on the board of the Reagan Library for 13 years. And I got to know Mrs. Reagan really well as a personal friend in the last 10 years of her life. So I am a Reagan acolyte. It gives me that same enthusiasm I had when I showed up in Washington in 1981 to be the Associate Attorney General. He's talking about a tax revolution, really. And now, he's following a script. He didn't invent this. He's following John Kennedy and Ronald Reagan and me. And about 10 Republican governors. I did. That plan he talked about is what I did for New York City. People want to know, how did New York City's economy turn around from 10.5% unemployment to 5 or 6% unemployment? How do we get 600,000 people off welfare? Even before welfare, we started welfare reform 2 years before Clinton and Speaker Gingrich did it. Here's how we did it. We lowered taxes. We lowered regulations.
Right.
And we were friendly to business. And we were friendly to big businesses. You know why? Not because I particularly like big businesses, because they have a lot of jobs. That's how you get jobs.
The taxes.
And all those people she's accusing of being his advisors.
The Steves?
The Steves are guys and people who made money.
Well, you know, Americans
who understand the American economy. And what she's relying on are a bunch of pinhead professors who haven't made a penny in their lives, have these ridiculous theories like, if I lower a tax, and I used to do this by doing a city budget, and I had a $40 billion budget, immediately they say, I'm going to lose all that money. They don't calculate how much I get from the tax cut. For example, I lowered the hotel occupancy tax in half. I collected twice as much. When Bush raised the capital gains tax, he lost money on the capital gains tax. Mm-hmm. This is much more complicated than the pinheads make it. And Donald Trump, having been in business with a group of businessmen around him, understands what is necessary with tax policy in order to create jobs. Cutting that corporate tax is brilliant. 35% in America, 12.5% in Ireland.
Sure.
Well, you can start your business.
That's a no-brainer.
What was your reaction to the 50 top Republican national security experts that penned this letter that was printed in the New York Times? They said they can't vote for Donald Trump because they think that he'll risk our national security.
Well, some of them friends of mine. One or two of them were employees of mine when I was United States Attorney. I believe it makes Donald Trump's candidacy really clear. He's running against the Washington insiders. You just heard from all the Washington insiders. These are all the people who have been running policy for the last 8, 10 years and 12 years. And the American people have delivered a judgment on that. They say America's headed in the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. These are the people who headed it in the wrong direction.
Well, what are they most threatened by? Is it truly bombastic rhetoric, or is it the fact that they're just not a part of his administration?
That is exactly. Everybody else who's run for president has all been part of the club, right? Mitt Romney was part of the club. John McCain was part of the club. John Kerry was part of the club. Al Gore was part of the club. Trump is not part of the club. Thank God. He's not part of the Washington insiders who have brought us, what do we have? We have a dysfunctional government. We have a more dangerous world. Right? We've got a budget that's out of control. We've got a budget deficit out of control. And we have truly anemic tax growth. 3 quarters in a row of less than 2% growth. So, congratulations. You're the people who did it to us.
Okay, so if
you want to be on that side, I see this as an election of, you're the guys in the middle. You're the ones who created the reason why the American people believe we're moving in the wrong direction by 70%. And Donald Trump has come from the outside with a group of, Reagan-like ideas to revolutionize Washington. And they don't have the connections to him. And these are a lot of people who recycle in and out of government.
A lot from the revolving door.
Yeah, they go into government, they come out, make a lot of money, go back into government. And Trump is not part.
So is it more of just fear? They're scared of losing their jobs?
No. They don't know him. He's not part of the club. He's not part of the Washington club. Look, frankly, I was part of the Washington club. I was Associate Attorney General. I know 80% of them. I do business with maybe 4 or 5 of them. But they're all part of the Washington insider group. It makes Trump's point dramatically that he is the outsider representing everybody else who doesn't have a lobbyist in Washington.
Mayor, so if you're one of these 50 people and you're saying don't vote for Trump, some have said they're going to vote for Hillary. Others have said they're not going to vote at all. But isn't the effect the same? If you don't vote for Trump and you're a Republican, essentially it's a vote for Hillary.
Here's the difference. There can be a lot of Bernie Sanders people who don't vote for Hillary, except they're not a bunch of Washington insiders, so they can't make headlines. You know, John Smith from Vermont and Tom Jones from Oregon, who's voting against Hillary, is not going to have, because that guy is an outsider. He probably should be voting for Trump. But in any event, this is a perfect example of what this election is all about. Do you want a continuation, government as we've known it for the last 10 to 15 years, which has basically been a government that the American people has pronounced as going in the wrong direction? Or do we want to take the ship of state and turn it around and turn it toward opportunity, toward growth, and toward a much tougher stance on Islamic terrorism than all these people have taken?
Yeah. Well, a recent survey, Political Magazine did a survey, an anonymous survey of America's mayors. And you, as America's mayor, have talked a lot about police and the ramifications of Black Lives Matter. And we've got a poll this poll that went out to America's mayors across the entire country, most of which are Democratic mayors, by the way.
That's
over
true.
80% in left-leaning cities. 12% said they were very worried about the safety of their police. 74% worried. You add those together, 86% of America's mayors are either very worried or worried about the safety of their police. Does that surprise you at all?
And 100% of the police are.
Sure.
I can't travel anywhere without being approached by a police officer. Maybe because of my speech at the convention, maybe because they know that I support the police very strongly. And they all tell me, Mayor, you got to speak up for us. We got the target on our back. We have a target on our back. Some of them talk about Black Lives Matter. Some of them talk about the president. Some of them talk about Hillary Clinton. Look, on the floor of the Democratic Convention, there were no uniformed police officers.
You told us that. That's right.
There were no uniformed police officers. She has not submitted an application for an endorsement by the Fraternal Order of Police. They don't like the police. They are anti-police. They are anti-cop. They don't want to lose whatever radical support they have by having policemen around. And that is we are creating an atmosphere in America where it's very dangerous for police.
All right.
Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. It's going to be traveling with Donald Trump later on today.
All right, let's hand it over to Heather. Donald Trump revealing his official economic plan, and he says he's going to make America great again.
No American company will pay more than 15% of their business income in taxes. We will work with House Republicans on this plan using the same brackets they have proposed: 12%, 25%, and 33%. These reforms will offer the biggest tax revolution since the Reagan tax reform.
Well, Trump will join us live in about 10 minutes to answer your questions that you've been sending in about his tax plan. But first, Stuart Varney, the host of Varney & Company on the Fox Business Network, is here to break it all down for us. Hey, Stuart.
Morning.
That plan is all about growth. It's about getting the economy moving again to create more jobs. And at the heart of it is the tax-cutting plan. As you heard from Mr. Trump right there, 15%, top rate of tax that businesses can pay, 15%. That represents a significant cut in the taxes that they're already paying. There you have it, 15% corporate tax rate, 3 tax brackets, 12, 25, 33%. All of those are down from where they are now. That's a massive tax cut for individuals, putting money back into the hands of people who go out and spend it.
I know we don't know a lot of the details yet. He hasn't fleshed it out. But would the deductions go away for charities, home interest, stuff like that?
We don't know that because we simply haven't had the details. Those details have not been fleshed out. He's concentrating on tax cutting, less regulation, and the production of domestic energy. Get the economy moving again. Because if you've got growth, if you can get 4% growth, you've got far more jobs, you've got higher incomes, you've got more demand in the economy, up goes the economy.
Right.
Some people would say that's a return to a feeling of prosperity.
A lot of parents out there like the child care. You can expense your child care costs.
Tax deductible.
Yeah, that's wonderful. But does that include clothes and diapers, or is it just the child care, the nanny and the babysitter?
Those are details which we simply do not know at this point. He will obviously flesh them out at some point in the future, but at the moment it is a tax deduction for the child care expenses which middle America has these days.
Yeah. Stuart, a lot of talk about growth, and these policies would incentivize a lot of that, the growth the country needs. What about growth in the wallet for the individual? What's the individual looking for in this plan to say, hey, this is where I'm going to add to my wealth?
I think it translates into growth meaning more jobs, higher pay. That's what it means to individuals. At the moment, half the country pays nothing in federal income taxes, so they would not be affected by a cut in federal income tax rates. For the other half, which does pay federal income tax, they would have more money in their pockets. And small businesses started up, if you've got a maximum tax rate of 15%, that's more money into the hands of business owners. So for individuals, for their own wallets, it's more money, theoretically, coming into their wallets.
Well, when you talk about the various economic plans, you had Trump yesterday's and Hillary Clinton's coming out with one on Thursday. She got a really bad review, essentially, in the Washington Post yesterday that talked about when she was running for U.S. Senate. She said, if you elect me to New York State, I will make sure that they create 200,000 jobs. Well, as it turns out, according to the Washington Post, they never materialized. And in fact, manufacturing jobs went down 25%.
As a matter of fact, I know something about upstate New York. And I spent a lot of time up there. That's an area that's been devastated, absolutely devastated. Every single upstate county north of Westchester and Orange counties, every single one of them in the last 10 years has lost more than 10% of their 20 and 30-somethings, okay? That's a mass exodus of people who are preparing to start families and get on with their lives. They've left the state. And that occurred during Hillary Clinton's watch as
Detroit
Senator.
Can relate to that. That's why he spoke yesterday in Detroit. Will you stick around? We're going to talk to Donald Trump. Will you stick around and talk to him with us?
Oh, please. It's all about growth, and I'm up for that.
All right. Plus, Well, as promised, Donald Trump joins us. He's running for president of the United States. On the Republican side, we got Stuart Varney from Fox Business with us. Mr. Trump, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
We're doing okay. Your ears must have been buzzing this morning because we've been talking about your pro-business, anti-tax tax revolution, essentially, that you unveiled yesterday in Detroit, that some are saying has echoes of Reagan.
Well, a lot of people have been saying that, actually, and I think maybe it does, and it wasn't necessarily supposed to be that way, but it's a very similar concept, and we've very, very substantially lowered taxes, and it's going to make our country hum.
Mr. Trump, some people have some questions about the details. You know, as a mother, as a new mother, I know Pete has young kids at home, and you're talking about being able to write off our child care. What are the details around that?
Well, the details are going to be put out, and they're a very complicated process, but it's very fair to the mothers and to the families. You know, these are people that are working very hard, and they're not allowed to, you know, if you have a business, you're allowed to do that. If you raise a child, which is in some cases harder work, you're not. So this is something, and Ivanka Trump was very much involved in this one, I will tell you. And it's something that's resonated and people like a lot. The exact details, I mean, we've given pretty good details, but the exact details we're going to be announcing probably over the next 2 weeks.
Okay. Stuart, you got a question for Mr. Trump?
Half the country, Mr. Trump, does not pay federal income tax.
Right.
What do they get out of your plan?
Well, the ones that aren't paying aren't going to be paying. The ones that don't have the jobs or that don't have the good jobs, Stuart, have a zero number in front. The rest of them we've lowered. We've lowered the rates very substantially for the middle class, as you see. And when people aren't paying, and you know, the sending in of that, we spend billions of dollars in Washington on bureaucracy, on sending in papers for people that aren't paying. And there are people that don't pay. When they're not paying, we're going to work it so we're not sending it in. We save a tremendous amount of money in terms of bureaucracy. But the key is to get the people up so they pay the minimum rate and then go in for there. We want to create jobs. And the way we're going to create jobs is to lower the corporate rate, in particular, lower the corporate rate, because we have companies that are going out of business. The other thing we're lowering, and it's a very important part of it, is we're lowering regulation. The regulation is making it impossible for people to open up new businesses.
Can we get 4% growth if your tax plan and your deregulation plan is put into effect? 4% growth quickly?
I think the answer is yes, and I think even more than that. With this plan, I think even more than that. I think we'd grow. You know, when China, as you know better than anybody, sir, when China goes down to 7%, it's like a national catastrophe. We're at 1%, and maybe going lower, believe it or not, but right now, we're at 1%. I think 4% is easily attainable.
Okay. Mr. Trump, your plan has been characterized as very pro-growth by many and widely praised, except not surprisingly by your opponent, Hillary Clinton, who has been obviously highly critical. This is what she had to say yesterday, and we want to get you to respond to it.
He's got 3 Wall Street money managers, an oil baron, a former chief economist at one of the big banks at the heart of the financial crisis. He's got 6 men named Steve. And you know, that they all care about the same things he does, about, you know, how to avoid paying their fair share.
Hey, what's the matter with guys named Steve? Just saying.
Well, this is, as everybody knows, this is a partial list. Other names are being put on as we speak. In fact, we had other names working on it, but we're putting the names on it. Over the next 2 weeks, you'll see the full council. But we've had tremendous brain power working on it, and we understand how to do it. You know, if you look at Hillary Clinton, when she was a senator, she was going to rebuild New York, okay? And it was a big thing, and it was big ceremonial. Never happened. Upstate New York is a total disaster. Jobs have left. We lost 47% of our manufacturing jobs under her when she was a senator. But she was going to rebuild it, and she came up with a plan, and everybody talked about the plan, and it was a total disaster. So that's basically what we're going to have here, too, with the country.
Right, exactly. I mean, when she was running for U.S. Senate, she ran a TV ad here in New York State that said, I'll do all sorts of things to make sure that 200,000 jobs are added, but things went south. You talked about that yesterday in your address.
I did.
At the moment, the unions, the formal structure of the unions, are very much on Hillary Clinton's side. Do you think the members of unions will come over to your side, given your plan?
I do. I like the Teamsters. I've employed thousands and thousands of Teamsters over the years, and I understand that the rank and file is going wild for Trump. They want to have me, and we're going to rebuild the infrastructure of the country. We're going to do things that she can't do. She wouldn't have a clue. And the Teamsters, many of the unions are absolutely rank and file. Now, the bosses, the leaders, some of them are, they automatically push the Democrat button. I mean, it's like an automatic thing. But rank and file is for us, and I think certain of the big unions, I have a feeling you're going to see them coming our way.
Mr. Trump, as you know, when you get to Washington, D.C., there's a lot of tug and pull, a lot of back and forth. If you were to say in a negotiation, in your tax plan, what would you deem to be the most important, something you won't give away? Is it the corporate tax rate being decreased, the individual rates being simplified, regulation? What is the biggest thing for you in this plan?
Well, there are a few things, but I think the corporate tax rate is the biggest lure, and that's what's going to bring new businesses to the country. We're losing our businesses largely because we don't know what we're doing, but also because the taxes are too high. We're the highest tax nation of your major industrialized nations. We're the highest tax nation in the world, and companies are leaving to pay less tax. Another thing that's very important is the 10% tax on money coming in. We have trillions of dollars outside of the country. We can't get the money in, and we can't use that money, therefore. And companies are actually leaving to go get their money, which is incredible. But they leave this country in order to get money that they can't bring in because they have trillions of dollars of money outside. That money is going to come in. It's going to be taxed at a rate of 10%, and that money is going to now flow back in. Right now it's prohibitive. They can't bring it in.
Mr. Trump, when you were going over this plan and figuring it all out with your advisors, why no flat tax like Herman Cain? Remember, he had the 999 plan?
Well, I never liked a flat tax where somebody making, $100 is taxed the same as somebody making $1 million. I always thought a graduated tax is a better tax. I thought it was a more fair tax. I think when you're making very little, you should be paying, very little tax because you need the money. When you're making a lot, it could be graduated upward. I've always felt that way.
One of the tax plan that you would like to essentially explode is the death tax. You get taxed during your life, and it just didn't make sense to a lot of people to be taxed at the end of your life. There are certain groups that would like to see that continue. Why do you think this is a good thing to get rid of?
A lot of people want it. It's very unfair. You look at farmers where they have a business, which are good businesses, but there's no liquidity. There are so many businesses, and all of a sudden you're paying this massive death tax. It's called estate tax or death tax, and they have no business left. I mean, their business is gone. They have to go out and borrow. Now they're overextended, and the farm doesn't work. And tremendous numbers of farmers, this has huge effects. And it has effects on family businesses where they're businesses and there's a certain value, but there's no cash, and they can't pay it. And everybody wants this to take place, so we're putting it in. This has been a very Republican thing, to be honest with you.
You've talked about rebuilding the infrastructure with an infrastructure fund. Private individuals would put their money in, and they'd be buying bonds, infrastructure bonds.
Right.
Is that a bit like World War II victory bonds?
You could view it that way, but we have to rebuild our infrastructure. We've spent so much money in the Middle East, trillions. Nobody even knows what the answer is. I used to say a few years ago $2 trillion for Iraq. Now nobody even knows what it is. They have no idea what the money we've spent. It's so much. But you add it up, it could be $4 or $5 trillion. What we could have done with that money, I mean, think of it. What we could have done, the nation we could have had with the trains and with the roads and with the bridges and tunnels and hospitals and schools, the money that we have not spent in this country. We have an infrastructure problem. The roads are coming apart. I have friends that are truckers, and they say they buy these big, beautiful trucks, and they're afraid to drive them on the roads. The highways are all, potholes and problems, and everybody knows it. No, we have to rebuild our infrastructure.
Please. No, well, Mr. Trump, another part of what you talked about yesterday is a coming energy revolution. The regulations under this administration have put a wet blanket on that. You say it'll increase GDP and jobs. How much potential do we have in that energy sector here in America?
I think we have unbelievable because, we as a country, we had no idea what we had. We're sitting on top of one of the great energy finds, and it's all because of technology. I mean, the technology that is available today allows us to do things which we could have never done. Now, we're being restricted from doing it. Now, our coal miners and the whole concept of clean coal, these are miners. You look at West Virginia, you look at Ohio, you look at Pennsylvania. Hillary Clinton wants to put them all out of business, wants to close every mine. I mean, she wants to put the miners out of business and steel workers out of business, frankly, because China is dumping so much steel over here, it's making it impossible for our steel workers. I mean, they're dumping. They are dumping steel so that we have to buy it from China. Very, very simple. They're dumping it over here at numbers that are ridiculous, and we're going to have to buy it from China eventually because they'll knock out the rest. So The miners are being put out of business, and the steel workers are being put out of business, and we're being played by every country in the world. We don't know what we're doing. Honestly, we have leaders that don't know what they're doing.
Mr. Trump, at the moment, the stock prices are very close to all-time record highs. Should I put my money into stocks right now?
I wouldn't do it because I think you have a situation where you have free money. I even did stocks a while ago. I did like 50 different stocks, and just for fun, because I'm not a person that really believes in it too much. And I did it just for fun, and I did it because, with interest rates, you're getting basically free money. If rates go up, you're going to see something that's not going to be pretty. Okay. And, it's all a big bubble. In my opinion, I would not do it, no.
You put your money in real estate. By the way, who are those people interrupting you yesterday?
Well, it sounds like Hillary people, I guess.
There were a lot of them. All right, don't go away.
It was sort of interesting, but they don't have the same, I said it, they don't have the same spirit as Bernie. Bernie's people, those were serious interruptions. These were just sort of, as Obama would say, these were JV these were not very good. But the speech was really well received. We had a tremendous crowd. It's the biggest crowd they've had.
Sure, and
it was great.
And our viewers are talking about it. That's why we would like you to stay with us, because Donald Trump, on the other side of a quick time out, is going to be answering viewers' questions, so keep them coming. Such an email response and Facebook as well.
Thank you so much.
Donald Trump continues with us. Mr. Trump, here's an email from Ellen. She asks, gas for cars is cheap now. Will you explain how deregulation will lower our electric bills?
Well, it's going to keep it low, and one of the problems we have with electric, and it's a very big problem, it's a tremendous problem, is we can't fuel the plants because our coal is just about being put out of business. A lot of these plants are having to reboot and do other things. China's using coal, and they're taking some of our coal, and other people are, but the coal and what they're doing is deregulation has been for the federal government has made it so hard for natural gas producers, coal producers, that they're driving them out of business. Prices are going to go up, and it's making them literally impossible, and the plants are going to have to be rebuilt, and electric bills are going to start going through the roof. And it's very, very sad, because federal government is putting so much pressure on these producers that it's a very, I deal with the producers all the time, and these are people, in many cases, substantial people that are going out of business. And electric bills, I'll tell you what, if they're not careful, they're going to go through the roof.
All right, Mr. Trump, Nancy has a question for you. What is he going to do about student loan debt?
So the single biggest problem that I see when I go around, especially with the young people, is they're going through college, they go to a good college, they work hard, they become a good student, they graduate high in their class. Number one, they can't get a job. The biggest thing I'm going to do is get everybody jobs, because we're bringing our jobs back. We're going to bring our jobs back so big league. So that's the biggest thing. But we're coming out with a plan probably in early September to help students with student debt, because the college costs have gone up so much, and they don't watch, because the students are like a conduit to get money from the government, because the student borrows the money and then gives it to the college, and the colleges don't care about what their costs are, because the college costs have gone up rampantly, and I think it's because the colleges don't care, because basically the students pay. We're going to come out with a plan to help the students, because they're suffering with debt. I mean, it's destroying people before they even start.
Mr. Trump, I just want to get this one in. It's from Janet, writing in from Cleveland. The middle class is being bled by taxes. Would you support a payroll tax holiday?
Well, it's something that's being talked about, absolutely, and the middle class is what we're talking about. As you see, we have a big tax cut for the middle class already, but it's something that's being thought about. It's something I'm thinking about, but we have already given, under my plan, as you know, Stuart, we've already given a very major cut to the middle class. Right. The middle class has been the forgotten class in this country. They built our country. The middle class has been the forgotten class. We've already given them a very big one. It is something we're thinking about, however.
All right. Finally, a quick one, Mr. Trump. Pam on Facebook says, when will seniors get a Social Security increase more than 60 cents? What are you going to do for our seniors living in poverty?
Real quick.
Well, we're looking at Social Security. It's a very big problem in this country. I'm the one that's saving Social Security. Other people want to knock it out. but we are looking at Social Security. The people are not making it on Social Security. It's a very big problem. We'll take care of it.
Mr. Trump, thank you so much for answering so many questions for us. For joining us this morning.
All right. He's off now to Wilmington, North Carolina, which is where our own John Roberts is.
That's right.
Stuart, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Great discussion.
It's
a pleasure being here.
All right, go over to the studio right on the other side of that wall now.
I shall indeed.
All right.
To the break.
Just saying. All right.
That's right.
Laura Ingraham joins us once a week, and she joins us right now live from Washington, D.C. Good morning to you.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, guys. Good to see you.
So what did you think of the Trump plan yesterday?
The thing about this is that the media and all these, Republican Trump critics have been saying for, months, you got to take this substantive, talk about the economy. Jobs in the economy remain the #1 issue for the American people. So he goes to Detroit, a place that has just been hammered by terrible management, mostly under Democrat control, and he makes a compelling case for a pro-growth agenda that certainly most conservatives I know thought the substance of which was phenomenal. You could talk about whether he reads the teleprompter, none of that matters. But the substance of what he said, especially on the corporate tax reform basis, where you'd bring down the corporate tax rate to 15%. So many yesterday I was getting tweets and texts from folks who, some of them not fans of Trump, say that alone would create the beginning of an economic renaissance in American business. We need those types of measures in place. I think that's exactly what the Trump campaign has to be focusing on. The economy, the economy, the economy. That means you're going to have more money in your pocket if Trump gets elected. You want a job, then you're going to have a chance to get a better job if he's elected. If Hillary's elected, we know these policies don't work, but they do put us further and further in debt. So I think that's the pitch he has to make. Whether the media is going to allow him to make that or just belittle him at every turn, I can't say that. But I think that was a good step in the right and substantive direction yesterday.
Yeah, well, Hillary was in Florida, and she spoke out right after he came out with his plan. We're going to listen to what she said, and then Donald Trump responding, because she's not in favor of his plan, of course. Take a listen.
He's got 3 Wall Street money managers, an oil baron, a former chief economist at one of the big banks at the heart of the financial crisis. He's got 6 men named Steve. And that they all care about the same things he does, about how to avoid paying their fair share.
If you look at Hillary Clinton, when she was a senator, she was going to rebuild New York, okay? And it was a big thing, and it was big ceremonial. Never happened. Upstate New York is a total disaster. Jobs have left. We lost 47% of our manufacturing jobs under her when she was a senator. But she was going to rebuild it, and she came up with a plan, and everybody talked about the plan, and it was a total disaster. So that's basically what we're going to have here, too, with the country.
Laura, that was Donald Trump responding just a few minutes ago on our show.
Now, think about Hillary's response to Trump's substantive plan laid out yesterday. Her response was, well, he has a bunch of people who used to work for Wall Street, and a bunch of them are named Steve. Now, this is a woman who is described by Barack Obama as the most qualified person in recent memory to run for the presidency. If she's the most qualified person to run for the presidency, where are her ideas that are different in any real respect from what Barack Obama tried and didn't work? So she can have her one-off comments about Wall Street, but this is in the wake of the billionaires lining up for her over the last 2 weeks. Those same billionaires who will set to profit enormously from things like the Trans-Pacific Partnership and all of these other measures that are simply going to double and triple down on trade deficits and other economic misery for the Rust Belt of the country. So it's clear from what's going on is they don't want a serious debate. All they want to say is, Trump's this, Trump's that, he's mean, that's all they're going to have. But for regular people watching the show today, this isn't working. What we're doing isn't working. And the temperament of Hillary Clinton yesterday in response indicates that she doesn't have either the ideas or the temperament or the approach that is really going to get this economy kick-started into high gear. So the substance yesterday was on Trump's side. The rhetoric was on Hillary's side, and very rich coming from someone who made a couple $100,000 every time she opened her mouth at Goldman Sachs.
Well, exactly right. Oh, the irony of her panning Trump for Wall Street connections.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, laughable. I mean, that's just a knee slapper.
Indeed. Well, another topic that came up yesterday is 2 parents of 2 of the Americans killed in Benghazi are now suing Hillary Clinton for wrongful death and blaming the careless treatment, blaming it in part on the careless treatment of sensitive information. It's the parents of Sean Smith and Tyrone Woods. Obviously, the server that was unsecured. We even hear that there was information on that server about the itinerary of the ambassador. What do you make of this lawsuit and keeping this in the news?
Well, again, when we perhaps learn more about the emails that were, quote, deleted or still missing from Hillary's server, we are going to know a lot more about what was there, whether there was any relation to the Clinton Global Initiative, lobbying or influence peddling there when Hillary was about to take over as Secretary of State or had taken over as Secretary of State. And we perhaps will learn more about what happened the night of Benghazi. You know, I was thinking about this. Remember the commercial that was such a powerful commercial in 2008? You know, when the phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning, who's going to answer it? Well, think about it. Hillary was actually right about Obama back then. He's not taking it seriously either, but she was wrong about herself. On that night of Benghazi, when they needed her, where was she? They hadn't convened the counterterrorism task force. She wasn't in the Situation Room, and those men died that night. So for all of the comments about Trump's temperament and Trump's this, Trump's that, the bottom line is when we needed her, where was she? And I think that this lawsuit, whether the cause of action is going to stand or not, I have to look more into that. I think that might be a little tough to play. But the question is, when the men needed her on the ground, where was she? And I think that's the stuff that the Trump campaign has to talk about. Don't get, caught on any of these side questions. The question of temperament, the question of judgment and experience. I'd turn that right around on supposedly the most qualified person to ever run for the presidency the night of Benghazi when those Americans desperately needed help. She wasn't there to give the right orders. She wasn't there to take that national security threat seriously in Benghazi. The day that ambassador traveled there, he obviously should never have been there. Where was the Clinton team? Yeah. Where was it?
Great questions. They're also apparently suing for defamation of character because she essentially called them liars, the survivors' families, on the Chris Wallace program. All right, Laura, thank you very much for joining us live.
Thanks,
she's going to go do her radio show in about 45 minutes on radio stations all across the country, and she's the editor-in-chief of LifeSet. All right. Meanwhile, coming up, Donald Trump firing back at the 50 Republican national security experts who penned an open letter condemning him yesterday. One of those experts responds to Trump here next. Donald Trump deemed unqualified to lead by members of his own Republican Party. In a letter, dozens of former Republican security officials write, quote, "We are convinced that he would be a dangerous president and would put at risk our country's national security and well-being." One of the names on that letter is Roger Zakheim, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense under George W. Bush. He joins us right now from our nation's capital. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
So, Roger, why did you take the extraordinary step signing this letter, essentially sandbagging the Republican nominee?
Well, I've had concerns about Donald Trump's candidacy early on, but I think events of the past couple of weeks really crescendoed to the point that national security professionals who have served in multiple administrations for Republican presidents came together and said enough.
What happened over the last couple of weeks that changed your mind?
I think that it didn't change my mind. I've consistently opposed Donald Trump's candidacy, but I think what resulted in this letter, particularly with the attack on the Gold Star father and mother, was just enough for national security professionals.
Roger, a lot of people were critical, obviously, of Donald Trump's statements around that particular incident with the Gold Star father, but it doesn't take away from, as you know very well, the downsides of this administration, almost all of which were in some ways partnership with Hillary Clinton, whether it's Libya or the abandonment from Iraq and elsewhere. Effectively deciding to come out against Donald Trump has the effect of not endorsing by any means. I know you're critical of Hillary Clinton as well, but it does open up the door for a Hillary Clinton presidency. You say Donald Trump would be dangerous. Wouldn't that lead to just as dangerous of a world?
Listen, I think we have a choice here between someone who's bad and someone who's worse, and I'm not going to be confined to either of them. The fact of the matter is we've had real tough challenges in national security over the past 8 years. Hillary Clinton was a part of it. Donald Trump, in many respects, if we actually go to his policies, someone who's advocated many of those policies that President Obama has put in place. So we have big problems on the national security front, whether you look at the Republican nominee or the Democratic nominee.
Well, Roger, rather than write this letter and go against your party's nominee, why not, offer to volunteer to advise him, try to change his mind on these things?
Well, I think I participated in supporting Senator Rubio's candidacy. In my judgment, Donald Trump is not a Republican. He's not a conservative. And frankly, what the letter bears out is this is someone who doesn't take advice.
Well, a lot of people supported other candidates initially and then moved to Trump when the alternative is Hillary Clinton. If he's so dangerous, why are so many members of the military, when you look at polls of military and veterans, they overwhelmingly support Donald Trump, who they believe would untie the hands of our warfighters on battlefields where we're fighting politically correct wars right now? Are there not upsides to sort of blowing up the traditional conventions, which haven't necessarily worked in every corner of the world?
Listen, I think the Republican nominee in past years has always aspired to have the values and character of the party of Lincoln or the party of Ronald Reagan. And Donald Trump falls short of that standard. I can't speak for others who support him, but he's crossed that line too many times for my support.
So, Roger, what are you going to do when it comes time on November the 8th to vote?
Well, I'm hoping between now and then we'll have another choice. One came out yesterday, someone who served. I'm going to look closely at that.
Is Hillary Clinton on your list of potential people you'd vote for?
As I said, I don't have to choose between bad or worse. I'm not going to vote for either.
All right. Roger Zakheim joining us live from our nation's capital. Roger, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, that's a great idea.
I think I would watch that.
Yeah, they're so different, but she's really funny. Have you ever seen her do any comedy?
Yeah.
She's funny. She really is, and they're totally different. So it's something I would watch too.
I would definitely watch it.
They need Flava Flav.
Wow, impressive. Good job, Heather.
All right, moving back to politics. Donald Trump laying out his economic plan yesterday at noon in Detroit.
I am proposing an across-the-board income tax reduction, especially for middle-income Americans. This will lead to millions of new and really good-paying jobs. The rich will pay their fair share, but no one will pay so much that it destroys jobs or undermines our ability as a nation to compete.
Not to be outdone, Hillary Clinton hits the Motor City Thursday to unveil her vision for the economy. So what can we expect?
Joining us now is economic advisor to Hillary Clinton and former director of the National Economic Council, Gene Sperling. Gene, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
What can we expect when we hear, Hillary Clinton unroll her job plan?
Well, I think she's going to be laying out the plan that she has been talking about, which is focused on one goal, which is raising jobs and wages for middle-income families, because that is really where our economy has not been performing as well the last 15 years. And she's going to show a singular focus on that by having a major infrastructure plan that would leverage over $500 billion, a Make It in America plan focusing on manufacturing here, making our tax code more patriotic in the sense that it rewards you for investing in manufacturing, coal communities, low-income communities, small business, as opposed to giving you incentives for shipping jobs and profits overseas. And I think one place you're going to see a lot of difference is on the issue of tax fairness.
And you also mentioned jobs. There was a Washington Post article yesterday, Gene, I'm sure you saw it, and it said when she was running for U.S. Senator here in New York, she promised to create 200,000 jobs. But, and the Washington Post said that really didn't pan out. And in fact, I think manufacturing jobs went down, what, 30%, something like that. So if she's going to run on jobs, the jobs she tried to create before didn't pan out, did they?
Well, what it really shows is how important it is to have a president who is fighting for jobs and standing up, particularly to China, on when they are violating our trade laws. So during the Bush administration, during those 8 years, our nation lost millions of manufacturing jobs, and she fought very hard and helped get things like the Rochester Institute for Technology. She fought for manufacturing jobs repeatedly. But I think one of the reasons to run for president is to stand up to China on steel, where there have excess capacity, which is like dumping. It hurts our steel workers. And many things like that, not giving them what's called market economy status. We have to be very tough on China. And what you're also going to see with her is a tax cut plan that is willing to raise income on the most well-off, on the highest earners in Wall Street, which is very different than what you saw with Donald Trump, where he's saying that if you are an investment banker who with a partnership income, you're going to pay 15%. Your marginal rate is going to be lower under Donald Trump's plan than many middle-income Americans face. And lastly, he was going to eliminate the estate tax. You don't pay any estate tax at all, not a penny, if you have under $11 million a couple. Why he would spend $270 billion that could be going to jobs and infrastructure to just give the most well-off families this tax break is really very puzzling to me.
All right, Gene Sperling, Hillary Clinton economic advisor, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
So as we do, we're now going to get the other side of that perspective from Peter Navarro. He's an economic advisor to the Trump campaign and a business professor at the University of California, Irvine. You just heard Gene. We heard you think you might have some reactions to him.
I just heard Gene, and it's like Bernie Madoff saying get tough on Ponzi schemes when Gene says he's going to get tough on China. Hear me out here. I got the biggest laugh of this whole campaign when I heard Gene Sperling was Hillary's advisor. Gene Sperling was the guy back in 2000 who helped Bill Clinton and Charlene Barfsky go to China and negotiate China's entry into the World Trade Organization, which got us 70,000 factories closed and over 20 million Americans out of work. We've seen Hillary Clinton's economic plan. We've already seen it. It's the South Korean Free Trade Agreement. She promised us 70,000 new jobs. We got 75,000 jobs lost, and a doubling of the trade deficit with South Korea. Short circuit of the truth there. 1993, we've seen Hillary Clinton's plan. NAFTA, Bill promised us 200,000 jobs, and we're down 700,000 jobs. So Gene Sperling, really, if I were Hillary Clinton, I would have gone back to C-SPAN, watched Gene Sperling talk about China and the world, getting into the World Trade Organization. He wouldn't be on my economic advisor council.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what Donald Trump rolled out yesterday. You say the key to his plan is that if everything goes according to his plan, we would have a lot of growth. And that big growth would be in comparison to what we've got right now, and that would change everything.
Yeah, what we have is the past 15 years where people like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama look at this problem in Keynesian terms. And all they do is apply massive fiscal and monetary stimulus, double our debt, screw up the Fed balance sheet. Donald Trump sees this problem correctly as a long-term structural problem. You got to handle it through comprehensive tax reform, trade reform, energy policy reform, and regulatory reform. And that was the beauty of the speech. That was a beautiful speech yesterday because it laid out a comprehensive plan. The goal is to double our GDP growth rate, generate millions of new jobs, trillions of new tax revenue so we can pay for infrastructure, Social Security, and everything in between. And that's the philosophy of it. And these folks, the Clinton people, don't understand this. All they want to do is tax the rich and spend more money that we don't have. We've seen 15 years of failure. We got the slowest recovery since World War II with the Obama administration. 8 years of it. Robin Hood Keynesians, that's all they are.
All right, Peter Navarro, thanks for joining us this morning.
Peter.